I'm Todd Dunn, and today I'm sitting in the cockpit of my 1972 Allied Princess 36. I'm up here just to go over what I need to do in terms of maintenance this year before the boat goes into water. And I'm also going to go aboard my 1936 wooden powerboat Tortuga and take a look around. I'm up here to do several things. I need to get a line off of sequester here that goes through a pulley at the top of my mizzen mast that I use to pull my triadic stay up with. It's permanently attached to the main and comes through a pulley at the top of the mizzen down to a cleat. It's a Spectra stay, so it does not need to be permanently attached except at one point, which makes rigging and de-rigging the boat a lot easier. I'm also going to look for some things. I could not find my splicing fids at home. I have a funny feeling that they're on board the sailboat, so I'll have a look for them while I'm here. And I'm also going to look for a few things aboard Tortuga. I'll do things like check the flares to make sure they're good for this year, and little things like that. And it's just sort of a quick look around on the boats to see what this current state is and what needs to be done. I have a voltmeter on Tortuga. I'll also use it to check the batteries, see how they came through the winter, and in another week or so I will bring my battery charger over and bring the batteries back up to 100%. So that's basically what I'm doing here today. Oh, one other thing. I bought a new radar cable, but I'm thinking of buying a new chart plotter which will display the radar, and in order to be confident that a newer chart plotter will be compatible with my somewhat old Simrad broadband radar, I need to check the pinout on the cable that goes into the back of the chart plotter. So I'll pull that off and see if it matches what's on the new chart plotters. If it doesn't, I may run into some issues. Anyway, so that's the main reason I'm here. Let's take a look around sequester and see what I'm going to be working on this spring to get the boat ready to go over. Well, the first thing that I'm definitely going to be doing is sanding out and varnishing the on-deck teak. There's a combing on either side of the cockpit, and underneath that winch over there, there is a winch pad that I'll have to sand out. And then I've got the companionway. I'll do the boards and the companionway surround. And up on the cabin top, I don't know, you can just see the aft end of one of the 10-foot long handrails that I will also sand out and varnish. And that is all of the on-deck wood, so there won't be much there. Another thing I'm thinking about doing is something with the solar panels, which I'll show you in a second. Sequester currently has a rather minimal solar setup. I've got 40 watts of monocrystalline solar panels wired to a Victron 7010 smart solar charge controller. Now, those are adequate to keep the batteries up when I'm not using the boat very much, but if I use the boat more, I need more solar. So what I'm thinking of doing is taking the two 50-watt panels off of Tortuga and moving them to sequester, and then I can take these two panels home and rig them up to keep things like my Rider lawnmower battery charged up, because it continually goes dead during the summer. And I'll put one 50-watt panel there, and I'll have to think about where the other one's going to go. I'm not sure where it will fit. It may end up being on a rail at the back of the boat. But going from 40 to 100 watts of solar will make a big difference in terms of keeping my batteries fully charged. And when I take the two 50s off the top of Tortuga, I intend to replace them with two 100-watt panels to keep Tortuga's batteries fully charged, so that I can just leave my refrigeration on all the time. what else am I going to do on Tortuga? Well, obviously, one thing is going to be to varnish the cabin house, which is a mahogany cabin house. So I'll sand that down and varnish it. I'll also do the handrails and the name boards and the transom, and that's all the exterior wood on the Tortuga, with the exception of the mast, which you can see there right behind the handrail, and I'll also sand it down and varnish it, but it's pretty simple to do. Then I'm going to paint the whole boat. And I'll start by finishing the repair. I started on the deck last year. You can see that white rectangle is where I rebuilt the deck. And I need to fill some pinholes in the surface there and then put another coat of white paint on. And after that, I will put the non-skid on. I'll repaint the non-skid on the whole deck. I may wait till I'm back in the water to do that because obviously you can see the deck is kind of dirty, and it's very difficult to clean the deck in here because there is no running water. And I'll also rebuild that section of tow rail that's missing once I get the deck itself finished. Then after I paint the deck, I'm going to repaint the side decks, and we will repaint the hull and the tow rail and the boot stripe. And of course on both boats I will put new bottom paint on. So those are the exterior things I'm going to do. I've got a little varnish and paint work to do inside the Tortuga. I'm probably not going to be able to show that to you today because it is simply too dark inside the boat. Even with the lights on, this camera doesn't like it. On this boat, other than cleaning the boat and buffing out some of the gel coat, which I can do after the boat's in the water, I will simply be buffing the top sides and painting the bottom in addition to the varnish work. And I've got one project to do down below. So let's go below and see if I can show you that if there's enough light. Okay, I'm aboard Tortuga now, and I've just finished doing some inspection and determined what work I need to do. I'm going to have to do a little work down below in terms of just painting. The cabin sole needs a coat of paint and a few other things like that. And I've got a few strips of wood to do. And I've got some work to do in terms of fairing and painting where I rebuilt the deck last year on the port side aft in the lower cabin. Just a small area, about 1 foot long by maybe 4 inches wide, so it's not a big deal. Just have to put a little fairing compound on it, sand it out, and then get 3 or 4 coats of appropriate paint. Other than that, boat is pretty much ready to go. The only thing I want to do is I do have a table to go on the port side that matches the one that's on the starboard side that the camera is sitting on right now. It's a fold-up table, and it really enhances the boat to have the availability of another table. So I've got to finish building that and install it. And basically it'll be attached to the side of the cabin house with a full-length piano hinge, and then have a removable leg. So you can pull the leg out, fold the table down, and have all the room that you might want. Other than that, Tortuga came through the winter pretty well. The only thing I'm a little surprised at is that my batteries are lower than I expected. They're at about 11.8, and they were at 12.8 when I put the boat away. So I'm a little disappointed that they didn't hold up better than that. So I'll have to charge them back up, and hopefully I didn't kill them over the winter. And as I said in an earlier video, I am going to be replacing the battery boxes that I have in the boat now. I've built new ones at home, so it's just a matter of bringing them on board and putting them in. But the hard part of that is I have to disconnect the batteries, pull the batteries, put the battery boxes in, and then reinstall the batteries. But that's the only difficult part. So that's pretty much all that has to be done inside Tortuga. I'm sure I'll find a few things that I'd like to do, and just be a function of whether or not I have time and weather. For example, today it's supposed to rain this afternoon, and it's very muggy on the boat. I'm kind of sweaty right now because of it, even though it's only about 50 degrees in here. So that's good for a wooden boat, keeps everything swelled up, but it's bad for doing things like painting and varnishing. So those things probably are going to have to wait till it warms up a little bit. Right there is where the table will go, in that gap, down underneath the white. And we'll just pan around and take a look at the rest of the cabin house. Helm is all fine, and everything here looks good. It's too dark down below to do any photography, but here we are. So the cabin house, came through the winter as I expected, unchanged, and we'll get everything that needs to be done. And the only other thing I'm thinking of doing is I've been using my little Raspberry Pi based chart plotter just sitting on the bridge deck with a 7-inch touchscreen, and that touchscreen makes the spots you have to touch a little small for my fingers. And I'm thinking of upgrading to a Raspberry Pi 400 and a 13-inch 12-volt monitor that I can just plug into the cigarette lighter plug on board, and that way have a little bit bigger screen. And with the Raspberry Pi 400 I can just use a mouse and be much easier to select things and also type things. And the Raspberry Pi 400 will be substantially more powerful than the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus that I currently have running the chart plotter. And switching over to the new computer is simply a matter of unplugging the micro SD card from the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus and plugging it into the Raspberry Pi 400. Dead simple. Which is good because I have OpenCPN running on the Raspberry Pi, and they changed their procedure to load OpenCPN onto a Raspberry Pi, and I have not yet been able to get it to work. So that's something I have to wonder about. So I hopefully will be able to simply swap out the micro SD card and have the system running. So that's kind of sums up what I want to do on the two boats this year, with a little bit of a look at the boats just to see what, give you a better feel for what I actually have to do. And with that, I'm going to end this video and say thanks for watching, and if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click that notification bell, and finally, give me a thumbs up if you like my content. Thanks again for watching.